Hello everyone, peace be upon you. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and stay with me until the end of the story. Also, leave a comment telling me which city and country you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my story has reached. For those of you who have already subscribed, I sincerely wish you good health, ease in all your affairs, abundant blessings, and may all your hopes and dreams come true. Amen. Now, let's begin the story. The sun is still low when Laura steps onto the concrete outside the Intel building at Fort Meridian. New Mexico air is dry and cool, and the desert horizon looks clean, like a blank report before the first red line appears. Inside, the ops floor is already humming, keyboards, filtered radio chatter, the constant soft beep of watch stations monitoring drone feeds. She nods to a few faces, keeps moving, coffee in one hand, encrypted tablet in the other. Routine on the surface. Not underneath. For 2 weeks she's watched small anomalies stack up. Access spikes in the network at odd hours. Cached mission briefs touched by a clearance level that doesn't match the duty roster. A drone route adjusted by 3 degrees without a proper ticket. One thing by itself is noise. Together, it's a pattern. She flags items quietly, builds a trail, and keeps her circle tight. Reed doesn't like surprises, and he especially doesn't like them from her. She takes her chair, opens the tablet, and scrolls last night's alerts. Another ping at 2:11. Same subnet as yesterday, same handoff across a proxy that pretends to be stateside but resolves to somewhere it shouldn't. She marks it, tags the log, and leans back. The monitors on the far wall flick between live desert footage and maps layered with boxes and arrows. She can feel the room's rhythm. It's steady. Her pulse is not. Ellis slides into the desk across from her, late, chewing a pen cap he shouldn't have brought onto the floor. "Morning, Cap," he says, voice low. He's pale, eyes tired blue from too much screen light. "Smart kid. Too smart to think this is nothing." She asks for the 2 to 3 o'clock roll-up. He pushes a drive across the gap like it's contraband and not a standard export. "Same fingerprints," he whispers. "Whoever it is knows our audit cadence." They pop in between sweeps. Laura nods, no reaction beyond a tight, "Thanks." She doesn't look up when Reed's boots hit the metal grate walkway behind her. She hears him anyway. Reed has a way of filling a room that makes people sit a little straighter. He stops at her station, arms crossed. "Captain Bennett," he says, crisp. "Brief me at 9. Keep speculation out of it." She turns. "I'll brief you with facts," she says. His eyes hold for a second longer than necessary, then he pivots and heads for the glass-walled office that looks down on everyone. At 9, she's there with a clean deck, timestamps, addresses, permission chains, and a weird 3-degree route change that placed a reconnaissance bird over terrain with 0 tasking. Reed takes it in with that cool face he uses on inspectors. "You're building a conspiracy out of bad housekeeping," he says. "Tighten the SOPs, retrain the night crew, and stop chasing ghosts." She keeps her tone even. SOPs don't forge a clearance. And bad housekeeping doesn't hide traffic behind a domestic proxy that hops out of country. He taps the table. "Noted. We're done." He stands before she can argue it, leaving the glass door to his shut behind him. Back on the floor, the ops noise feels louder. She hates the taste of going around a superior, but she hates the other taste more, the one that fills a unit when someone inside is selling the team piece by piece. She runs a deeper search across a slice of storage most officers don't know how to query. 3 more touches. All within a 10-minute band the night before. Whoever did this had the schedule. Not just access. Timing. A shift change rolls across Fort Meridian like clockwork, boots, voices, the gas smell of a fueling truck near the flight line, rotors thumping far off. Over the internal net, a safety advisory about high winds, then routine chatter about a convoy coming up from El Paso. Laura puts in for a scheduled maintenance window on the Intel server, 20 minutes later she has the logs mirrored to an offline box. Insurance. She doesn't like relying on hope. Ellis drops a sticky note on the corner of her keyboard, an old habit from a kid who learned to communicate before he learned to trust channels. You should see the drill calendar, it says. She opens the file. A security drill is posted for late afternoon, perimeter test, comms router failover, standard stuff. It looks too neat. The drill window overlaps the same 10-minute band that keeps appearing in her logs. She stares at the screen long enough for the cursor to blink twice, slow and patient, like a heartbeat in a quiet room. She walks the corridor to the comms hub and lets herself in with her badge. The air is colder. Racks hum, blue LEDs blink in rows. She reads the hand-scrawled whiteboard, router labels, a change ticket number. The number on the board doesn't match the digital cue. Sloppy. Or deliberate. She takes a photo, sends it to her own secure vault, and returns to the floor. Just before noon, Reed calls her back. He's edgy now, jaw tight. Drop the leak obsession, he says, voice flat enough to skate on. Focus on tasking. We have a drone window at 1400. She keeps her tone steady. We can't task with confidence if our routes are compromised. He exhales through his nose, like patience is a thing he packs in his breast pocket and she's using it up. You're done, Captain. He turns away. Lunch is chow in a paper boat at her desk. Dry chicken, a roll, coffee gone cold. Outside, the wind comes up and dust whistles at the seams of the building. She watches live feed from a training range, 2 trucks, 4 silhouettes, nothing unusual. Her tablet buzzes. A new login attempt, blocked, then repeated from a slightly different address. She flags it and starts assembling a flowchart with names and times. One block on the chart keeps ending up blank. She doesn't force it. Blank blocks have a way of naming themselves when you give them room. At 1400 hours, the drone window opens. Routes confirm on the board, signatures verify. She feels the same small twist in her gut she's felt on every launch since Afghanistan. Back then, Intel missed a minor route modification that turned into a major mistake. She still sees sand and smoke when she shuts her eyes on restless nights. She doesn't romanticize the past. She files it under lessons paid for. By mid-afternoon, the drill notice pings again, reminder, 15 minutes. No one on the floor looks surprised. People like drills, drills explain interruptions. She doesn't like the timing. She closes her eyes, counts 3 slow breaths, and makes her call. Ellis, she says quietly, during the drill I want you on the net monitor, not the drill checklist. If anything spikes, you screenshot first, ask questions later. He nods, nervous, but he gets it. The drill alarm hits the ceiling speakers with that bland recorded comm. This is a scheduled security exercise, please follow your assigned procedures. The lights don't dim, but the room's mood does, like someone put a hand over the sun. Comms reroute, phones click over, a couple of displays freeze for 3 seconds and then pick up. Laura watches the traffic. A packet tries to roll out of a subnet that should be dark. She marks it. Another follows, cleaner this time, bouncing through a label that says it belongs to maintenance, not Intel. Ellis whispers, got it. He captures the screen. She timestamps it, then pulls up the duty roster for maintenance. The badge logged into that port is rated higher than any night tech. Too high. The drill ends. The voice thanks them for their cooperation. The room exhales. Laura doesn't. She collects the screenshots, the badge ID, the mismatched change ticket, and the access spikes into one file. It isn't proof beyond argument, not yet, but it's enough to demand action. She stands, slides the tablet under her arm, and heads for Reed's office. Outside the glass, she can see him pacing, phone to ear, profile hard against the desert glare. She knocks once and enters. He lowers the phone slowly, like he's deciding which face to wear. She places the tablet on the table between them and keeps her voice even. "We have an internal breach," she says. "And someone is using the drill windows as cover." He doesn't look at the screen. He looks at her. For a long beat, neither of them moves. Then he reaches for the tablet. The reflection of green text washes across his eyes. When he finally speaks, it's soft, the way a warning sometimes is. "Careful, Laura," he says. "You don't know where this leads." She does not blink. "I know exactly where it leads if we ignore it." Outside, the rotors start up somewhere out on the pad. On the ops floor, another routine message scrolls by in calm letters. In the desert heat, a dust devil spins and dies. Laura feels the moment tighten, like a strap pulled one notch too far. She doesn't back away from the table. She doesn't raise her voice. She waits for him to choose. Reed's thumb pauses on the tablet's edge, then he sets it down like it's something foul. "You want to gamble your career on screenshots," he says. "On hunches." Laura doesn't move. "On timestamps, badge trails, and a drill time to mask and exfil." "We're already late." A muscle jumps in his jaw. The room feels smaller than it is, glass cold, desert glare flattening the color out of everything. He steps closer. "Drop it," he says, "lower now." "That's an order." She doesn't look away. "No." For a heartbeat nothing happens. Then his hand comes up fast. Metal hits bone. White sound swallows the room. The clipboard glances off her temple and the floor tips under her. She grabs the edge of the table, misses, and goes down hard. The carpet is thin, concrete rises to meet her. She tastes copper. The glass walls blur into a single sheet of light, then fracture back into shapes. Reed stands over her, breathing hard, eyes wide with something he won't name. "You should have listened," he says. She tries to answer but the words skid away. The ceiling hum is too loud. Her fingers find the tablet and push it toward the door. It swings open on its own. A shadow cuts the light. Ellis is there, color drained from his face. "Captain," he stammers, then freezes when he sees Reed. "Sir." Reed's mask snaps back into place. "She slipped," he says. "Get medical." Ellis doesn't buy it. He kneels beside Laura, hands shaking, eyes on the blood tracing her hairline. "Don't move," he whispers, useless advice. She blinks once. "Lock the file," she breathes. He nods like he understands and fumbles for the radio clip to his vest. The base reacts before the med team arrives. You can feel Fort Meridian stiffen, boots rushing, comms traffic tightening, an alarm tone pulsing out across the grid. The hallway fills with uniforms and clipped questions. Two medics slide in with a stretcher, check pupils, press a gauze pad that smells like clean hospital air and bad memories. "You with me, Captain?" one asks. She answers with a slow nod that makes the room swing. They lift. The ceiling moves past in squares. Reed is a statue by the glass. She watches him over the medic's shoulder as the door hisses shut. He doesn't follow. Infirmary lights are unforgiving. The doc calls it a concussive event and orders scans. A nurse tucks a blanket around her like she's cold. She is. Through the fog, Laura strings the minutes together, the drill window, the badge mismatch, Reed's swing, Ellis's shock. The timeline holds. She isn't wrong. She closes her eyes against the light. Somewhere outside, rotors spool up. That sound doesn't belong to maintenance birds. It belongs to visitors. The helicopters arrive like a verdict. 3 of them, black and impatient, kicking grit into spirals as they settle on the pad beyond the infirmary windows. Word passes through the base like static across a long wire. Generals. Plural. By the time Laura can sit without the room tilting, the command channel is locked, and a voice she recognizes from Pentagon briefings cuts through every speaker on post. This is Lieutenant General Robert Kane. Effective immediately, Fort Meridian is under lockdown. All gates closed. Communications restricted to encrypted channels. All personnel will report to their section chiefs. Further instructions to follow. Lockdown changes the air. Doors thump shut. Badges beep on checkpoints that didn't exist this morning. The echo of voices drops a register. The med tech gives Laura a look that mixes concern with apology. "They'll want your statement," he says. "When you're cleared." She swings her legs off the cot, slow. "I'm cleared enough." He protests, she ignores it. A guard appears at the curtain, assigned to her now, apparently. The guard's eyes flick to the bandage at Laura's temple and away again. "Ma'am," she says. "General Armstrong requests your presence in command." They move through hallways that feel a shade narrower than they did at dawn. Soldiers avoid looking at one another too long. Out at the perimeter, gates stand like clenched fists, razor wire catching the wind. In the glass room above the ops floor sit 3 stars, Armstrong, Kane, Harper, reading the base like it's a map and they're already inside the terrain. Armstrong turns when Laura enters. The general's voice is low, even. "Captain Bennett." She doesn't offer a chair yet. "I need to know exactly what happened." Laura keeps it clean. Access spikes. Proxy hops. The drill overlay. The mismatched ticket on the comms board. Reed's obstruction. Reed's blow. The guard's jaw tightens at that last part. Armstrong's eyes flick toward Kane and back. "Medical?" Armstrong asks. "Concussion, stable," Laura says. "I can work." Kane cuts in, voice like a metal file. "Who else has seen your findings?" "Lieutenant Ellis," Laura says. "He captured screens during the drill." Harper's tone is gentler. "And your assessment?" She doesn't dress it up. "We have an internal breach using scheduled events as cover. The badge wrapped around the exfil is above night tech. Someone with rank is laundering access." Armstrong nods once, decision made. "You'll coordinate with my team," she says. "We will sequester systems, image servers, and pull every access log for 72 hours. Captain, until further notice you don't go anywhere without an escort. It's not a punishment, it's armor." Laura takes the seat only when Armstrong gestures. Through the glass, the ops floor is quiet, busy, calm faces, fast hands. Reed is absent. "Where is Major Reed?" Laura asks. Kane answers without looking up from a tablet. "Located and separated," he says. It's a careful phrase. It means watched. It doesn't yet mean charged. The first sweep starts within minutes. Armstrong's people, cyber, legal, security, fan across Fort Meridian with cases that look like they carry instruments and actually carry consequences. Ports are mirrored, drives imaged, side channel logs harvested. A colonel from outside sits at a folding table and calls names into a room with no windows. The questions are short, the pause is shorter. Did you access? Did you authorize? Did you notice? Did you report? If no, why? If yes, to whom? The base answers in clipped syllables. Some voices shake. Ellis shows up with a tablet hugged to his chest like a life vest. He looks wrecked, but steady. Got the frames, he whispers, handing it to Laura. "Anne. I locked your file. Redundant copies. Good." She doesn't say it out loud. She doesn't have to. Armstrong leans in, scans the captures, and points to a line of text. "That badge," she says. "Whose is it?" Laura meets her eyes. According to directory, it belongs to a staff officer 2 levels up from maintenance. Which is either theft, or mask. Harper's brows knit. Or both. The order drops, comms outside the task force go silent. Personal phones boxed. Laptops tagged. The base breathes through one straw now, and the generals control the air. Reed finally appears in the periphery, flanked by 2 MPs, face a blank page. He doesn't look at Laura. He looks at Armstrong and gets nothing back but the same steady gaze Laura got. The balance of the room shifts a degree in her favor. She files the observation and doesn't let satisfaction show. Night comes fast in the desert. The glass turns black, reflecting the room back at itself, officers, screens, the quiet churn of a machine designed to hold together under strain. Laura presses a fresh bandage to her temple and keeps working. The pattern gets clearer as logs stack. Whoever is inside knows the cadence of drills, the gaps between failovers, the blind spots that appear when everyone's eyes are certified to be elsewhere. This is not a random thief. This is a planner. Kane breaks the silence. We'll assume external coordination until proven otherwise, he says. Air-gapped nodes go last. We sweep from the edges in. Armstrong nods. Captain, you and Ellis build us a map of drill windows for the last month and overlay every anomalous touch. If it lines up, we have our skeleton. Laura answers with a simple, yes, ma'am, and gets to it. The map grows. Red dots gather like a rash along the same corridors of time. At 2300, a message pings the secure channel assigned to Armstrong's team. It's short, and signed, and mean. Stop digging. Next time, we don't miss. Harper reads it twice, passes the tablet across. Laura feels the room cool by a few degrees. Armstrong's expression doesn't change. They're worried, she says softly. Good. Then, louder, double security on Bennett. Lock the outer doors. We're not blinking. Somewhere beyond the glass, wind hits the hangar doors and makes them sing. In the dark reflection, Laura sees herself, smaller than she feels, standing inside a storm she didn't start and won't walk away from. The day began with a pattern no one wanted to see. It ends with a base sealed tight, 3 generals on deck, and a truth that's not going back underground. She looks down at the red dots crowding the screen, then up at Armstrong, who gives a single, steady nod. The choice Reed wouldn't make is made for him now. The next step is obvious. Find the hand behind the badge. Pull. And don't let go. Laura starts pulling before the coffee is even brewed. She and Ellis build the drill window map from the past 30 days, stack anomaly hits, and circle overlaps in red. The picture is blunt, every leak road inside a scheduled event. Comms failover at 1400. Perimeter test at 1700. Storage patch at 0200. Different labels, same 10-minute throat where eyes turn away. Armstrong stands behind them, arms folded, tracking the pattern like a checklist. We bait the next window, the general says. We choose it. We watch everything. They set a controlled drill for 1600 with a clean cover story, router firmware verification. On the side, Laura prepares a false mission packet that looks useful but harmless if it escapes, a drone route to nowhere with a signature that mimics live tasking. She salts it with markers only their team can see, little tripwires in the metadata that will light up if anyone touches it. Ellis scripts a watcher that screenshots on the millisecond and shoves copies out to 3 separate vaults. If they breathe on this, he says, half to himself, we'll feel it. At 1558, the floor is calm the way a hospital is calm before the doors slam open. Reed is locked somewhere else on base with 2 MPs and no phone. Whitmore crosses the glass behind Armstrong, says nothing, leaves nothing behind but a faint aftersmell of cologne and old brass polish. Laura ignores him. She watches the time tick down, watches the internal net reroute, watches the first tiny freeze as the drill begins. At 1602, something moves. A credential logs into a terminal tied to maintenance, but the ACL says otherwise. The badge belongs to a staff officer who shouldn't be anywhere near that switch. The access reaches for storage, brushes the false packet, and hangs there as if tasting it. Ellis's watcher snaps frames in a burst. Laura marks the trace. "They're in," she says. Armstrong nods once. "Let them pull," the general says. "I want to see the path." The packet copies. It slides across a VLAN that only 3 people can authorize, then jumps to a hidden process behind a label that doesn't appear on any normal dashboard. The path veers into a pocket Laura flagged last night, a subnet that comes alive only during drills. The watcher lights up the route like runway lamps in fog. Kane calls cyber to cut peripheral exits, not the core path. "No spookouts," he says. "We catch the hand, not the shadow." Ellis's screen blinks. "We have a terminal," he says. "Physical location, comms hub, rack 3, panel bay K." Armstrong doesn't raise her voice. "Security," she says into her mic, quiet approach. 2 teams. Doors soft. Laura is already moving. The escort sticks to her shoulder. Down the corridor, past the whiteboard with the sloppy ticket number, into the cold blue of the hub where air smells like dust and ozone. The door opens without alarm. Whoever is working in there is sure no one is coming. They are wrong. 2 MPs peel left, 2 right. Laura angles toward Bay K. A figure crouches behind the panel, shoulders hunched, headset on, hands quick and precise. For a split second she can't place the back of the head. Then he half turns at a cable tug, and her stomach drops a click. Ellis. His eyes go wide when he sees her. His fingers hesitate just long enough for the MPs to step in, for the headset to come off his ears, for the cable to fall from his hand like a cut vine. "Mark," Laura says, and it comes out flat. He's pale as paper. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "I didn't have a choice." Armstrong arrives in the doorway, silent witness. The MPs secure the scene. Kane's voice crackles on comms, "Do not disconnect the rig. We want the live map." Harper's tone rides under it, steady. No one talks except Bennett and Armstrong. Laura crouches so she's at Ellis's level, not above him. "Then explain," she says. "Start with who told you where to be." He stares at the floor past her boots. "I got a message 2 weeks ago. Private. They knew things about me they shouldn't, my loan, my mom's clinic bills, the clearance mistake I made last year and didn't report. They said fix a few router issues during drills, no harm, no names. Then it wasn't routers anymore. It was storage touches. Then packets." He swallows. "They said if I didn't help, they'd burn me and take my mom with me." Laura keeps her voice level. "They. Who is they?" His eyes shift toward the overhead camera, toward the glass that isn't there. "I didn't see faces," he says. "Instructions came from inside. They used throwaway accounts, but the tone was military. The timing matched senior schedules. When I asked a question, someone answered in minutes like they were down the hall." Armstrong signals a tech. The tech traces the live session chained out of Ellis's panel. The path doesn't go to the wild net. It goes inward first, into a buried service only a handful know exists, then out through layered proxies. "Someone gave him the path," the tech says. "This isn't a script, kid." Harper nods, eyes on Ellis. "You're done touching anything," Harper says. "You're going to sit, breathe, and give us every message you got." Ellis nods fast, tears he doesn't let fall hardening into the edge of panic. "I kept them," he says. "All of them. Hidden. I knew I'd need," he stops. Armstrong cuts in. "You did one thing right," she says. "We'll use it." Back in command, the captures grow across the big screen. Laura lays out the timeline, line by line, no drama. The generals listen. Reed sits at the edge with 2 MPs behind him, face blank, hands quiet. When Ellis's messages hit the display, threats, instructions, exact minutes for drill windows, something changes in the room. The tone is not random. It's written by someone who understands the rhythms of a base, the pressure points. Read the sign-offs, Laura says. The bottom of each message carries a tiny artifact, a machine note consistent with a specific secure client. The client ID has a fingerprint. The fingerprint matches a login that touched drill schedules last month from an office 1 floor up. Whitmore's office. No one says the colonel's name aloud at first. Armstrong just points 2 fingers, and security moves like a quiet tide. Whitmore walks in under escort 10 minutes later, smooth, composed, hat under his arm, eyes bright. He looks at the screens, at Ellis sitting small on a chair, at Laura's bandage, at Reed between MPs, interesting theater, he says. Armstrong's voice could cut sheet metal. Sit. He does. Laura toggles the last capture, a command message that timed the 1600 drill to the second, signed with the client ID that lives under Whitmore's admin key. Whitmore's eyes don't flick. Keys can be borrowed, he says. Shared for convenience. You know how it is. His smile is dry. Or maybe you don't. Kane flips to a different slide. Access to the hidden subnet came from a terminal registered to a room Whitmore alone reserves during drills. Harper follows with a bank statement that legal scraped in the last hour, shell companies, small deposits, regular cadence that lines up with drill days. Nothing huge. Just careful. Whitmore's voice stays calm. You're stacking coincidences. Laura holds his gaze. Coincidences don't time themselves, she says. Armstrong stands. Colonel Richard Whitmore, she says, every rank await, you are relieved of duty pending investigation. You will accompany security. You will not speak to anyone outside council. Whitmore inclines his head like it's a social inconvenience. General, he says, you're chasing the symptom. The disease is higher. He looks at Laura then, and there's a slice of something almost like respect. You're sharp, he says. Shame your courage will be wasted when they put this back in the box. They take him. The door shuts. The room holds its breath and then lets it go. Reed finally cracks. I told you she was building ghosts, he says, desperate. This is political. Armstrong doesn't raise her voice. Major, she says. Medical photographed the wound you caused. Sit down. He sits. Night turns into not night on the screens as the base pushes through the first shock. Ellis writes. He gives them usernames, phrasing quirks, the Times messages arrived. The team cross-references with watch logs, duty rosters, cafeteria swipes, parking cameras. Patterns settle like dust. Laura sees the shape now. Whitmore is not the only node. He is a hub that knows the routes and sells the timing. He pulls strings, but a hand above him knots the threads. Kane sets a sweep for dawn, warrants, sealed. Desktops, seized. Safes, opened. Harper drafts a message to the troops, short and clean. We're fixing what's broken, it says. We are one unit. We hold the line. Armstrong taps the table once with 2 fingers. No leaks, she says. We stay inside the wire. Laura rubs the edge of the bandage and leans back from the map they've built. The red dots are not random freckles anymore. They make lanes. Lanes lead somewhere. In the quiet that follows, her secure tablet buzzes. A new message. No sender. No header. Just 5 words on a gray background. You are not done yet. She shows Armstrong, who reads it, nods, and hands it back. Good, the general says. Let them talk. We work. Laura looks at Ellis dozing upright in the chair, shoulders curled in on himself, then at Reed staring at nothing, then at the empty chair where Whitmore sat like a man waiting for a plane. She thinks about the first red line she saw 2 weeks ago and the blow that tried to stop her from seeing the rest. She thinks about the choice she made in Reed's office and the one Armstrong made for the base. The next move is set. Dawn is a few hours away. The hand behind the badge is real. But the arm behind the hand is still in the dark. So they widen the light, inch by inch, and keep pulling. Dawn breaks over Fort Meridian like a hard reset, pink on the ridge, grit on the teeth. Armstrong's warrants go live at 0600. Security teams move door to door, calm and fast. Desktops bagged. Safes opened. Drives imaged. The base breathes through clipped orders and boot scuffs. Laura and Ellis sit at the hub of it, map up, red lanes glowing. Kane runs interference on the outer circuits. Harper stands with the troops, steadying hands without speeches. At 0617, a red lane flares when it shouldn't. Not a drill window. Not on the calendar. A service wakes up inside the hidden subnet, opens for 8 seconds, and snaps shut. Ellis catches 2 frames. Laura zooms. The service called a tasking file that doesn't exist in the official queue. A ghost task. They're spooked, she says. Armstrong's reply is clean. Then they'll move fast. Be faster. Security clears Whitmore's office. Nothing overt. Legal finds a laminated card taped under a drawer, a matrix of numbers and letters that looks like a crossword and isn't. Ellis plugs the pattern into a parser and gets a schedule key for off-book maintenance slots, the spine of the red lanes from the last month. He built the calendar they hid behind, Ellis says, voice flat with tired anger. The room closes around the fact without ceremony. No one is surprised. At 0742, the ops floor hiccups. A recon drone already in the air gets a tiny coarse nudge. 3 degrees. Laura's stomach drops. She's seen this movie. She checks the official tasking, no change pushed. She checks the shadow service, a duplicate route with the nudge baked in, signed by a key that should be dead since midnight. We're live, ma'am, she tells Armstrong. If we don't cut this, the bird flies blind into a window we didn't authorize. Kane scans the schema. If you sever wrong, he says, you brick the platform midair. Harper's voice is steady. What's the cleanest cut? Laura points. Kill the shadow path at the switch behind Bay K, leave command link up. We'll hot patch the route on the primary. Armstrong doesn't hesitate. Do it. The escort is already on Laura's shoulder when she's moving. The comms hub smells like last night, cold air, metal, faint ozone. 2 techs pop a panel. Ellis rides the console over secure line and counts her down. Shadow service alive in 3, 2, now. A thin green LED blinks where no LED should blink at this hour. Laura looks at the tiny light, thinks about the first time she saw a wrong light in Afghanistan, and pulls the inline fuse with her thumb and index finger like it's a thorn. The LED dies. Ellis breathes into the headset. Shadow is dark. Primary is clean. Pushing hot route, now. The recon feed wobbles on the wall screen upstairs, then stabilizes. The drone swings back to its real arc. On the glass, Armstrong doesn't smile. She just taps the table. Once. Back in command, they trace the command that tried to nudge the drone. It didn't come from Whitmore's desktop. It came from a secure room he reserved during every drill. The room is empty now, but the switch tells the truth. A hardware token was used at 0719. Logs say the token belongs to a senior staff officer who hasn't swiped into any building since 0600. Either the token walked itself, or someone with pockets did. Kane sends a team. Harper stands 2 doors down in case the pockets come back. While they wait, Armstrong has Whitmore brought in, not for theater, for pressure. He sits like a man waiting for his ride, hands folded, eyes curious. Laura keeps it simple. Your key signed a ghost task at 0719, she says. We cut it. The bird stayed up. Whitmore's mouth twitches. Then you learned something today, he says. Congratulations. Armstrong's tone would chill water. Who's carrying your token? He looks past her at the base reflected in the glass. If you need me to say a name, he says, you don't have the case you think you have. He leans back. Also, if I'd wanted your bird to fall, it would have fallen. Ellis pings Laura. The team at the secure room found a relay, small, expensive, and dumb enough to do one thing well. It was wired to a ceiling void that leads into an adjacent office with a view of the flight line. No one in the office when they arrived. Card swipe on that door, read, yesterday. Not this morning. Another, a staff aide whose schedule puts him in the motor pool. Not there now. Armstrong flicks a look at Kane. Close the interior grid, she says. No one moves without a buddy and a badge. The aide surfaces 20 minutes later at a checkpoint with a different jacket and the worst timing of his life. He freezes when he sees MPs where there weren't MPs an hour ago. He tries to argue his way through with a harmless story. It doesn't hold. They bring him up, sit him in a chair still warm from Whitmore. Laura doesn't ask who gave him the relay. She asks who promised him it was nothing. The aide stares at his shoes and says he was told it was a resilience test, that he was doing the base a favor by firing backups during drills. By who? Harper asks, even. The aide's eyes flick to Whitmore and away, scared and loyal in the same heartbeat. Sir told me to keep it quiet, he says. Said Hire wanted proof the place could be blinded and not break. Armstrong doesn't move, doesn't sigh, doesn't soften. Hire who? The aide shakes his head. Never said. Messages came from the same secure client every time. Short. Precise. Ellis pulls the headers. The client fingerprint matches the one that signed Ellis's threats and the drill key, the same chain Whitmore controlled. Laura watches the aide crumble under the weight of his own rationalizations. People don't think they're the villain when they unlock the side door. They think they're helping a test. The clock slides past 0900. The recon bird lands clean. Another airframe spools up without interference. Screens hold steady. Armstrong orders a controlled pull on every token Whitmore ever touched. Security sweeps the admin wing again, this time gloved and humorless. A safe behind a framed certificate gives up a small book of one-time pads and a note with 3 initials. Not a full name. Not enough to charge higher. Enough to point. Whitmore watches the room work like a man at an aquarium. You're close, he says, almost kind. But you still won't say the part that matters out loud. Someone above my pay grade needed noise and deniability. I provided both. You cut me out, they'll grow another branch. Laura keeps her voice steady. Branches need roots. We'll get there. He studies her bandage. You've got grit, he says. Just be sure you still like the flag you're saluting when you're done. Kane brings in a packet from legal, financial pulls accelerated under emergency authority. The shell companies that brushed Whitmore's accounts also brushed 2 others in small amounts, regular as the calendar. One is the aide. The other is a contractor with a badge that expires next week and a parking pass that just lit up at the East Lot. Harper is already on the radio, East Lot, stall the contractor, no sirens. They stall him. In his trunk is a travel router, a second relay, and a burner phone that lights up with a text the moment the MPs open the lid, pause ops until 1000. The text arrives from the same secure client. They have the device. They have the route. They don't yet have the finger pressing the send key. Armstrong doesn't wait for that finger to get nervous. We freeze non-essential tasking until 10, she orders. We revalidate routes. We lock every token. Then we go knock. She looks at Laura. You and Ellis finish the overlay that ties the client to rooms. I want a list of every time that fingerprint was alive and which door badge was within 10 feet of a terminal. Ellis's hands move like he practiced for this his whole life. The list populates. A cluster forms around Whitmore's reserved room, the comms hub, and one more spot, a conference room with no camera and a window that reflects the sky too well for the cheap lens they put in 5 years ago. The only badge that sits near that door at each event belongs to Whitmore, or to a runner he sent. And at 2 of the events, a second badge floats nearby for exactly 6 minutes each time. Reads. The room turns and looks at him. Reed's voice is hoarse when it finally comes. You think I signed anything? He says. I was there because I was told to audit drills. That's it. Laura studies his face and sees something break that isn't a confession. Shame, maybe. Or the realization that he was a tool in someone else's hand and hit the wrong person with the only power he thought he had. Armstrong doesn't pronounce guilt. She orders another interview, recorded, counsel present. We'll separate bad judgment from bad intent, she says. But we're not guessing. At 0956, the secure client pings again. Stop digging. A second later, a short script tries to wake the shadow path they killed. It fails. A third later, a different script pushes a bogus alert to the perimeter, breach at gate 3, to pull eyes away. It fails, too. Kane smiles without humor. They're out of clean tricks. Harper folds his arms. Or they're about to make noise. The PA hums. The bass waits. Nothing else moves. By 1008, the grid is tight, the routes are clean, and the red lanes on Laura's map are turning gray one by one as switches are rekeyed and ghost services die. She feels the knot ease a fraction. Not victory. Just airflow. Armstrong signs 3 more holds. MPs walk 2 more people out, quiet, no cuffs, faces blank. The aide cries once in the hall where no one sees. Whitmore watches him go like a chess player losing a minor piece. Armstrong stands. Colonel Whitmore, she says, you are under arrest for acts prejudicial to good order and discipline, conspiracy to transmit classified information, and sabotage. The words are heavy, official, not angry. He rises without help. General, he says, you'll make a fine report. He glances at Laura one last time. Keep your map, he adds. You'll need it. They take him, and this time the room breathes like it means it. Outside the glass, the desert is bright and ordinary, as if none of this ever touched it. Inside, Fort Meridian resets its posture by degrees. Doors unlock on timers. The ops floor hums in its familiar key. Laura touches the edge of her bandage and lets her hand fall. The map on her screen is still lit with a few stubborn dots. Not many. Enough to remind her the arm behind the hand hasn't shown its face. She closes her eyes for one breath, opens them, and nods at Ellis. We're not done, she says. He already knows. They widen the light again. The next pull will hurt more. That's fine. They're past the point of stopping. The room accepts that fact the way a unit accepts weather, no one likes it, everyone adjusts. Armstrong signs the last hold orders and hands the rest to legal. Kane directs Cyber to keep the grid tight for 72 hours, no exceptions. Harper drafts a short note to the troops and reads it once, out loud, to be sure the tone is right. We fix what's broken. We move together. It isn't a speech. It's direction. The arrests move without drama. Whitmore goes first, then the contractor, then the aide. 2 more names follow by lunch, both tied to tests that were never on the calendar. None of them touched the secure client directly, they carried pieces and pretended they never saw the picture. That's most conspiracies in uniform, fragments sold as favors. Legal takes statements. MPs seal rooms. Evidence lockers fill in neat rows. The base, which spent the night in a clenched posture, starts to breathe through its nose again. Laura pushes for stabilization as hard as she pushed for exposure. She sits with Kane's team and writes out a clean sequence for bringing systems back without reopening doors they just shut. Shadow services stay dead. Tokens are reissued on a new tree with two-person control. Maintenance windows get random offsets no one can predict, including the people who schedule them. The drill calendar is centralized under Armstrong's signature and mirrored to three eyes that don't flinch. Comms return in phases, external first for mission partners, internal last for personal phones. Every step signs a log. Nothing is casual. Ellis is transferred from a chair outside command to a small room with a carafe of water and a pad of paper. He writes until his hand cramps, sets the pen down, flexes, and starts again. He hands Laura a timeline that matches the one she built from logs, right down to the 10-minute throats. He doesn't ask for a deal. He asks for his mom's clinic to keep its appointments. Armstrong won't promise outcomes. She promises process and protection. Ellis nods like that's more than he expected. It is. Reed sits through 2 interviews with counsel. He doesn't deny the swing. He doesn't pretend he made a good call. He admits he was angry and felt cornered, that he thought Laura was undermining his command in front of his people. He says he was told to audit drills by an unnamed hire and thought showing up near the secure room was that. He cries once, a quick, ugly thing he shoves away fast. The generals don't rule on guilt today. They separate intent from action and move the assault into a lane with its own rules. Suspension stands. He loses his badge, his sidearm, and his office for now. Laura watches from 10 feet away and feels exactly what she expected to feel, no triumph, no pity, just relief that the facts are written down where they can't be massaged. By afternoon, the ops floor runs like itself again. A recon bird lifts, flies clean, lands on time. A convoy check-in from the highway clicks through without a hitch. The perimeter alarm that used to fall strip at dusk doesn't bother anyone. The sensor was miswired 3 commanders ago and finally got fixed under the new sweep. Little things add up to trust. People notice. Armstrong orders daily town halls for a week, 15 minutes at shift change. She stands on the steps above the floor with Harper at her side and Kane behind a laptop, and she takes questions without theatrics. Why lock down? Why now? Who's gone? What's next? She says what she can and says, pending investigation, only when she must. Laura presents once, not as a hero, just as the officer who saw the pattern first and refused to look away. She keeps it technical and plain, the red lanes, the drill covers, the way someone exploited predictability. You can hear the floor lean in when she says, we will be boring on purpose for a while. Troops laugh once, the kind that shakes dust off a bad night. Harper brings in chaplains and counselors without fanfare. They hold office hours in a corner room near the mess and keep the door propped with a chair so no one feels like they're sneaking in. A dozen soldiers show up on day 1. Twice that on day 2. Betrayal sits heavy, it takes professional hands to lift it. No forms. No speeches. Just time and honest words. Policy follows practice. Privileged access now requires 2 badges and a live supervisor code. The buddy rule returns for late-night work. Whiteboards get a second set of eyes before anything written on them affects a switch. A whistleblower channel opens to an off-post number run by people who don't care about friendships and do care about evidence. Posters go up, plain black text on a white sheet. If you see something that doesn't match the roster, call. No ranks on the poster. No logos. Just the number. The media calls by day 3. They've heard words like lockdown and generals and want a story. Public Affairs releases a controlled line with no color and no lies, an internal security incident was identified and contained, operations continue, no impact to public safety. Fort Meridian does not trend. That's a win. The three generals begin their exit plan like they begin everything else, quiet, thorough, on their timeline. They don't leave a vacuum. Late that evening, the last stubborn red dots on Laura's map dim out as Ricky's finish. She sits in the chair she dragged close to the glass and allows herself one long exhale. The bandage at her hairline is smaller now. The ache behind her eyes is not. Armstrong steps up beside her, silent for a minute while the floor hums. "You kept pulling," she says. "That's leadership." Laura shakes her head. "That's duty." Armstrong lets the correction sit. "Sometimes they're the same." Ellis knocks lightly on the doorframe and hovers until Laura waves him in. He looks better on no sleep than people twice his age. "The clinic called," he says, surprised. "They said someone covered the gap for this month. I didn't ask who." Laura doesn't take credit. She didn't ask either. Some things get handled because grown-ups are in the room again. "Finish your debrief," she says. "Then sleep." He nods, half smiles, and leaves. Reed passes by under escort, eyes down, then glances up and meets Laura's look. He stops, opens his mouth, closes it. "I'm sorry," he gets out finally, like the words scraped his throat. She doesn't say she forgives him. That's not hers to give yet. "Own it," she says. "Then fix what you can fix." He nods once, a small movement that costs him. Harper's town hall that night is short. He thanks the line troops for showing up for each other when it got ugly. He reminds them that the uniform doesn't protect them from bad actors, their systems do, their habits do, their willingness to speak up does. He points to the buddy signs and the new token readers like their seatbelts instead of shackles. People get it. They don't clap. They go to work. Kane finishes the final overlay and prints a thin stack for the record: drill windows in red, anomalies in black, lockout times in green. The lines tell a simple truth: predictability was the enemy and discipline is the cure. He hands the stack to Armstrong. She signs the top page, date and time, and slides a copy to Laura. "For your file," she says. Laura slips it into a folder. She will keep it where she keeps the other lesson paid for. Near midnight, the perimeter lights flick to night mode. The stars over New Mexico don't care who almost broke the base. The ops floor dims to half. Voices drop. The routine, which is the real heartbeat of any post, comes back in steady beats. Laura stands at the window and watches a fuel truck crawl past a hangar door. On her tablet, a new message pings into the secure inbox. 5 words again, same gray background. "We see you staying steady. No threat this time. Not a truce either. Just proof the arm behind the hand hasn't given up sending notes." She forwards it to Armstrong and adds 2 words, logged and archived. Armstrong replies with one, "Good. There's work left, charges to prefer, boards to convene, holes to stitch shut so tight they squeak. But the base is no longer bleeding. The map is mostly clean. The worst rattle in the walls is gone." Laura closes her eyes once, opens them, and turns from the glass. Tomorrow will be checklists, briefings, drills that are drills for real reasons. She can live with boring. Boring keeps people alive. On her way out, she touches the doorframe with 2 fingers, a habit she picked up on a different deployment on a different continent. Not superstition. A reminder: places stand because people do the unglamorous work right. Outside, the desert air is cold enough to clear her head. A single helicopter sits dark on the pad, blades still. The guard at the corner nods. She nods back. Past the point of stopping has turned into the point of steadying. The storm that tried to pull Fort Meridian apart has become a list of fixes and a stack of sworn statements. Not neat. Not over. but moving towards something that holds. And that's enough for tonight, until morning says otherwise. Dawn throws pale light across the flight line, and the base wakes like a machine that learned to run smoother. Laura is at her desk before the first briefing, coffee hot, inbox lean. Armstrong's exit plan is on page 1, handoff milestones, oversight notes, after-action tasks divided by owner, due dates tight. Kane posts the final security posture, boring by design. Harper adds the human piece, rotation changes, counseling hours extended, peer monitors embedded in units that took the hardest hit. It looks like a checklist. It reads like a promise. By 8, legal has charges written in clean lines. Whitmore will face conspiracy, sabotage, and a stack of regs that leave little room for clever speeches. The contractor and the aide get their articles, 2, different weights, same gravity. Ellis signs his sworn statement and turns over every message, every header, every timestamp. He doesn't try to shape it. He lets it speak. That's how it should be. Reed appears with counsel for an administrative hearing in a quiet room with glass that doesn't look out on anything. He accepts the suspension and the referral for assault without excuses. He asks to make a statement to the unit one day, not for his career, but because the hit he threw belongs in the same record as the work the unit did to recover. Armstrong doesn't grant it yet. Do the work we give you, she says. Start there. He nods. For the first time in weeks, he looks like a man who might listen. At 9, the last 2 red dots disappear from Laura's map as old keys die and new ones take their place. She screenshots the clear grid and saves it under a name she'll remember, baseline_after. She writes a 1-page summary for the file, no adjectives, just cause and effect. Predictable drills created cover. A planner turned cover into lanes. A team broke the lanes by cutting predictability and raising the floor on discipline. She includes a line she learned the hard way, bad actors thrive where habits are sloppy. It's not poetry. It's the truth. Armstrong holds one final town hall before she releases the base back to its commander. The steps above the floor are crowded now, but the mood is steady, not raw. She thanks the troops without ceremony. She says they'll remember the week Fort Meridian locked down not because of who fell, but because of who stood. She doesn't name Laura. She doesn't need to. People know. Harper closes with 10 seconds on integrity. Kane taps the new drill calendar and says, surprise is a tool. We'll use it. The room answers with a low hum. That's as close to applause as a working floor gives. The handoff itself is quiet. Armstrong signs, the commander signs, copies go to the right inboxes. The 3 generals will leave by afternoon. They don't make a parade of it. They never do. Before she steps away, Armstrong finds Laura by the glass. You kept faith with the facts, she says. Keep doing that when no one is watching. Laura answers the only way she knows. Yes, ma'am. Armstrong studies the bandage line that's nearly gone and the eyes that are not. File your lessons where others can find them, she adds. That's how bases get smarter. Then she's gone to the next task, the next door, the next flight. In the hours that follow, normal returns in layers. The mess serves an overcooked lunch that somehow tastes right because it's ordinary. The mailroom sorts packages. The motor pool swaps a tire. A flight line tech fixes a stubborn hinge with a squirt of oil and a small curse. People say, afternoon, again like it's a word they remember. In the infirmary, the doc clears Laura for full duty with a frown that says don't be a hero and a nod that says he knows she will be anyway. The message channel that used to carry threats stays quiet until 1500, when a final note drops in with the same gray background as before. 5 new words, you closed most of it. Laura forwards it to Armstrong out of habit, then remembers Armstrong is wheels up in an hour and adds Harper and Kane. Harper replies first, logged. Kane replies second, good. Laura flags the message and files it under ongoing. She doesn't answer. You don't feed ghosts. In the late afternoon, Reed asks to see her with an escort and a guard at the door. He stands straight, eyes clear. I can't undo what I did, he says. I can stand where I need to. She lets the silence hang long enough to make it count. Stand where the facts are, she says. He nods. Copy that. He leaves with the guard. She doesn't watch him go. Ellis drops off a thumb drive that holds his scripts, cleaned and documented. For whoever gets this chair next time, he says. So they don't have to improvise under fire. Laura takes it like a relay baton. Get sleep, she says. Real sleep. He grins, tired and young. After I call my mom. He goes. The chair he leaves spins once and stills. Just before sunset, Public Affairs pushes a short release, internal security incident resolved, procedures updated, operations normal. No names. No drama. A reporter calls anyway. The base doesn't answer. The story the world gets is no story, which is the best kind in this line of work. Inside the wire, the story is a dozen small things done right by people who won't get their names on a plaque and don't want them there. The helicopters lift out at dusk. Dust rises, settles. The pad goes quiet. Harper walks the floor one last time and shakes hands without speech. Kane leaves a list with the S6 and a look that says don't get lazy. Armstrong gives the commander a coin and a line, honor the routine. Then the blades bite air, the birds get small, and Fort Meridian is itself again. Laura takes a slow lap past the places that mattered, the comms hub with Bay K, the conference room with the too shiny window, the whiteboard that now has no handwritten change numbers on it because whiteboards aren't change control. She stops at the doorframe of Reed's old office and doesn't step inside. Some rooms you leave shut until the work is done. Back at the glass, the desert turns gold, then gray. The ops floor shows a drone feed, a supply map, a weather band moving clean across the state. Boring. The good kind. Laura opens a blank document and starts the after action, 1 page of lessons anyone can read without a glossary. Train people to question schedules. Tie authority to accountability. Randomize. Require 2 sets of eyes. Protect the person who raises a hand. In the margin she adds a line for herself, courage isn't loud. It's stubborn. She prints 2 copies, signs the bottom, dates them, and drops one in the official file. The other she slides into a folder with a name on the tab, Fort Meridian, week of. It goes on the shelf next to other thin files from other places with different dust. Paid for, she thinks. Filed where someone can find it. Outside, the guard on the corner waves as she steps into the evening. The air smells like metal and sage. Somewhere a coyote yips and stops. The base fence shines dull in the last light. She walks toward the barracks, not because she has to, but because she can. No escort. No rush. A routine walk at a normal hour on a post that is steady again. She thinks about the week, the hit that tried to stop her, the generals who showed up when it counted, the kid who almost drowned and decided to swim to the right shore. She thinks about what it takes to keep a place honest. It isn't speeches. It's habits and the will to hold them when it's easier to look away. At her door, she pauses and looks back at the lights along the perimeter. They look like a runway guiding something home. She smiles once, small and real. Tomorrow will bring another brief, another drill, another set of boxes to check. Good. The work is the point. She steps inside, sets the folder on the table, and powers down the tablet. No buzz. No gray messages. Just quiet. And for the first time in days, she lets herself believe it, Fort Meridian will hold. Because people decided it would. Because they chose boring over brittle, facts over noise, and duty over pride. That's not a grand ending. It's the right one. She turns off the light, and the bass keeps breathing without her for a few hours. That's how you know a place is sound. Tomorrow, she'll be there when it wakes.